A drinking problem. Data shows 61% of adults in Vermont drink alcohol compared to 50% of adults elsewhere in the U.S. 10% drink heavily, and 66,000 people in Vermont have alcohol use disorders. And Colin Flanders at 7 Days. Alcohol is a leading driver in calls to police, too.
Yeah, that's right. And when you think about it, I mean, on its face, it's not really a major issue that more people here like to drink maybe than the national average if you're having a glass of wine with dinner every now and then. But as the stats you read off reflect, that it's a lot of people are drinking in really concerning ways. And that has ramifications all across the state on the healthcare system. A leading driver of police responses in terms of DUIs. There's been 100 fatal car crashes involving alcohol over the last 5 years. And last year alone, police were performing 5 roadside driver's tests related to alcohol a day. So there is a big issue with alcohol, and it's something we don't really talk about enough.
And is that because it appears the trouble with booze is really overshadowed by opioids in Vermont?
I think that's a big issue, and I think I was a little wary of making this comparison too harshly in the story because I don't want to suggest that we should not be talking about opioids. We're talking about opioids, rightfully so, because a lot of people are getting sick and a lot of people are dying. I think the challenge is that a lot of air in the room has gone towards opioids because of the emergency, because of the immediacy of how quickly it's killing people. And alcohol has a bit of a slower burn. I mean, there are people who are drinking themselves to death quite young, but it's often something that can pick up over time, years, even decades, until you really start to feel the impacts. And that makes it harder to notice and also harder to talk about.
So is the state then shifting its focus now to zero in on the alcohol problem?
Yeah, I think the state is taking a lead from the national scene. The federal government, which just recently the U.S. Surgeon General came out and said that alcohol should have cancer warnings on it because of what we know now about how closely linked some cancers are to alcohol. I think the hope here in Vermont is that we will start talking about this and raising awareness and encouraging people to take a closer look at their relationship to alcohol. The health department is going to put out a public service campaign this spring, essentially asking people to take a look at how much you drink and maybe try to drink one less. That's going to be the title of it. It's just a step towards making people think a little bit more critically about how they use what is a substance. Alcohol is a drug, and not a lot of people think of it that way.
And in the legislature, there are moves there too, right?
That's right. There's a proposal to raise alcohol taxes, which has been shown in other places, to make an impact on drinking rates. You might not think about it, but over time, especially the heaviest drinkers, if you raise taxes on alcohol in the same way that we've raised taxes on cigarettes over the last handful of decades, it can start to convince people to maybe reconsider buying that 30 rack of beer every day. And so I don't think that's going anywhere this session, but the hope is that it will start a conversation and maybe get picked back up at a later date.
And do we know why the bottle is such a big problem here?
Yeah, I mean, there aren't any real solid theories, but people have thoughts. I mean, one of the big ones, and I think anyone can relate to this, is that Vermont is a rural state. It's a cold state. Just up until recently, we've had a pretty long stretch of cold. And in some parts, there's just not a lot to do. And alcohol is kind of a part of our culture. It's the way we celebrate. It's the way that we mark occasions, anything from retirements to birthdays to even memorials. And so it's a really big part of the culture. And we really embrace our craft breweries and craft distilleries, and so it's just a big part of who we are. And I think that's the challenge here, is parsing that out and wondering how can we talk about it in a way that doesn't negate all of some of the benefits of the social aspects and all of that, but also doesn't overlook the negative stuff as well.
Your story's out in 7 days. Colin Flanders, thank you so much. Be well.
Thanks.